Hi there, I'm Peter, Managing Director of GlasCurtain. We're a Canadian manufacturer of fiberglass framed curtain wall systems for triple glazed applications. And today we have episode 5 in our curtain wall conversation series, where we talk to industry experts to explore new ideas of what's possible with glazed facades. In this episode, we're talking to Andrew Peel, founder and managing principal of Peel Passive House Consulting in Toronto, one of Canada's leading passive house certifiers, educators, and consultants. Focusing on high performance, residential, commercial, and institutional projects, Andrew and his team bring decades of professional and academic expertise in low carbon construction and sustainable energy. As one of the founding members of Passive House Canada, Andrew was also a key contributor to the Passive House Planning Package, or PHPP, that we've come to know so well today. He is also widely published in magazines such as Passive House Buildings, now Passive House Accelerator, and a frequent lecturer at events around the world, including the International Passive House Conference, Passive House Canada Conference, and the Passive House Network Conference in the United States. This is a conversation you won't want to miss. We had a great time chatting with Andrew about his origin story, recent updates to the National Building Code of Canada, the limits of mechanical systems compared to investments in better building envelopes, the impact of soaring energy prices in Europe and elsewhere, and so much more. We hope you enjoy this wide-ranging conversation as much as we did. Well, thanks very much for joining us on Curtain Wall Conversations, episode 5. I know you and I have known each other for a couple of years now, so really appreciate you making the time today.
Hey, Peter.
Hey, Andrew. How are you?
Man, I just got off a call with the city of Toronto. I've got this application for my own Enerfit retrofit, and it's just been a struggle to get through the city. I'm a little flustered, although it was a positive end to the thing, and actually something potentially bigger in terms of them embedding Enerfit as a caveat to getting a bit of density.
Okay.
Because they're worried about this project. It's asking for a bit more density than they're comfortable with, and they're like, well, and part of it, 12% of this is due to exterior insulation we're adding. Like we're increasing the density by adding insulation, right? But we're not. It's not like we're creating more living space or anything. So.
No, and I'm pretty sure like City of Vancouver is making exceptions for that. Like in their bill, I don't know if you're as familiar with the building codes in BC, but I seem to recall them making some kind of allowances for like, if your walls are a little bit thicker, it's okay. We'll give you the extra room, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's right. The Vancouver policy is well ahead. So I've been pointing to them for that. So it looks like there's some good promise that we can be informed by that work in Vancouver to kind of draft something for Toronto that they can, another obstacle hopefully out of the way.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny you should mention that Vancouver is, very much leading the way, or the BC sort of energy step code is leading the way. I had one of our earlier conversations, I think episode 3, with Chad Howden from Blackcomb Glass. That they do a lot of Ryco products, and I think there's so much that the rest of the country can learn from what BC is doing. I'd like to come back and sort of get into your origin story a little bit as well. But maybe we can sort of start with where we are today in the industry. What does leadership look like in Canada? Obviously, you guys are based in Ontario. What does it look like today from the perspective of Ontario?
Yeah, I mean, things are progressing. We've got a lot of great activity. It's another hotbed, I'd say, for Passive House. Quite a few affordable housing organizations engaging with Passive House, so actually developing new construction. There's even retrofit underway, a few projects, including some we're involved with. So it's actually a really exciting area for Passive House. It really is Ontario. So I think it's a developing market, some good opportunity. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, then let's take this opportunity then to talk about your origin story. I think I've listened to a couple of your other sort of podcast interviews recently, and they sort of started with, you were at school, you were doing electrical engineering, you spent some time in Germany, you spent some time in the UK, but would we be bold enough to even go back earlier and say, how did Andrew Peel, get interested in, in the world of engineering and science? What were you like as a kid?
I was like as a kid. I think I was inspired by my brothers. My one brother did computer engineering, and he's 12 years older than me. So that was a clear example, a mentor and role model for me. So I think that probably sparked the interest in engineering. I didn't actually know my dad very well. I hadn't seen him since I was young. But he actually he was a bit of a part entrepreneur, part tinkerer. He got into electronics as well. And I remember even as a kid visiting him and being down in his basement. And he had this like TV open, old cathode ray tube, and he's like, "Don't touch that." I was like, "Okay." One of the few memories I have of him. And so I think that these things that you don't even really think about too much, but you just when you ask the question, like, okay, yeah, there's some seeds there that get planted, right? That kind of do affect the course of your life.
Absolutely. And I think every engineer family has a story of, we took this thing apart and we had no idea how to get it back together. And it is funny how these things do run through families. So you obviously went through high school, went on to university, and sorry, you did study electrical engineering rather than, I don't know, you didn't study energy modeling, you didn't study structural engineering. So how did you go from electrical engineering to starting your own consultancy?
Right. So I developed an interest in renewable energy, which is their clear connection to electrical engineering, right? And I wanted to really get into the industry, and this is back 2004 or five, probably, as a kind of initial interest, right? And but there wasn't really anything happening in Canada at the time, or it was a cottage industry. The odd cottage would get that installed, or very little happening. And I remember going to the Solar Energy Society of Canada's annual conference, and it was a small little thing, and they had about 4 vendors, and you talk to them like, "Hey, any job opportunities?" And they just laugh at you, right? Not in a mean way, but you're just like, "No, there's not enough going on." So I was like, "Okay, I've got to look. How do I get into this industry?" And I started to look at educational opportunities as well. Very limited in North America at the time as well. You could go do primary research, so studying and developing the efficiency of solar cells. And my girlfriend at the time, actually, she was living with somebody who was doing a master's in solar energy at the University of Toronto. Just chatting with her one day about it, and she's just like, "Yeah, I've spent 2 years developing the efficiency of this solar cell, particular technology. I don't remember what it was." And she's, I've improved it by 0.1% in my 2 years time." And I'm like, I don't want to do that. So anyway, so I looked further afield and found opportunities in Europe and found a master's program in renewable energy. It's been around since the late 80s, well established. No one would have heard of it outside of the area, but so part of me, I'm like, I'm taking a bit of a chance going here to some small town or city in Germany. But this is what I want to do, so let's take a chance. Yeah.
And so you went from that program, but there's still a gap. I mean, you didn't come fresh out of your master's program and start your own consultancy, did you?
So how I veered into building energy efficiency is finding an opportunity at the Passivhaus Institute in Germany, just applying to various organizations, and they had an opportunity actually working on their software Passivhaus planning package. So I helped develop the solar gains algorithms that many people don't enjoy. One aspect of PHPP. So
it's your fault, Andrew. It's all your fault.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. So I ended up working there for a while, and then just moved. I got an opportunity to work in the UK for a company called Building Research Establishment, large organization, well, large, several hundred people, just doing anything to do with buildings, right? They've got a building called Burn Hall where they just burn stuff. It's like they throw it in and fire testing and all sorts of stuff.
As a manufacturer of quote unquote combustible, building envelope products, we do fire testing too. And actually we're heading down to Intertech in Texas in like 2 weeks to do more fire testing. And what a pain in the butt all that fire testing is. It's obviously super important, but it's unfortunate that we don't have more of those kind of burn facilities. There's one facility on the North American continent that will do this kind of testing, and there used to be one actually near Ottawa. But anyways, we could use more of these kind of burn facilities.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I mean, you get that even with other types of products like ventilation systems, like being able to test certain technologies. Like there may be one lab, if that, right? Or sometimes, yeah, you happen to go to Europe or somewhere else, right? So, and yeah, I can appreciate as a manufacturer it being an expensive endeavor to ship your product and engineers or whatever into different places, right?
And Intratech, they just charge monopoly rents, right? It's like $100,000 to do a test, and thankfully, you hope you pass the test, of course, and thankfully we have great support. We have Alberta Innovates is a big sponsor and supporter of ours. So thankfully, we don't have to bear the entire burden ourselves. It would be too much for a company of our size. But yeah, it is a super important test at the end of the day. It's like we do want to demonstrate safety. You do want to demonstrate, and sort of like increase the confidence. Now it's interesting. I don't know if you saw the recent updates to the National Building Code of Canada that Al Jogalis had recently published for Glass Canada. That at least for non-contiguous sort of stretches of quote unquote combustible, frames or sashes for on non-combustible building envelopes, CAN-ULC S134 testing isn't required anymore. As of NBC 2020, which is, of course, being that rollout of adoption will be province by province over the next, year or two or whatever it is. But yeah, I mean, because, once they started going back in the archives, I'm like, why is it that we considered aluminum non-combustible in the first place? And it was like, turned out to just be some like off the cuff random comment in the 70s that someone was like, I don't think it's, is aluminum actually combustible? It's like, maybe not. And then they just like kind of threw it in there. Aluminum can combust too, like at a certain temperature. I can assure you, especially now with all the polyamide thermal breaks and everything else we're doing to sort of, improve the thermal performance of aluminum. Yeah, it becomes, more and more combustible. Doesn't make it dangerous per se. Doesn't make it a risk to life safety. Doesn't mean that you're going to have flame propagation from floor to floor. But the same is true of quote unquote combustible, sort of systems like a fiberglass frame.
Well, and I think, I mean, you're coming back to or raising a key point about, what's the purpose of testing of requirements, building code or national regulations or whatever it is. Like, what are you trying to actually achieve with them? And does the underlying requirements actually achieve that? And B, are they actually up to date and relevant? It's a continual evolution of learning and mistakes made and corrections or whatever. But we get this bring up ventilation again, just as an example where there's all sorts of requirements around that and around sizing and capacity and stuff. And in some ways that makes sense, but when you look in practice, operationally, these systems are never being operated at those design rates. Yet if you're having to run them at those rates, you're just needlessly wasting energy, potentially affecting air quality with ironically, dry air, too much air coming into the space, right? Although I know that's a big topic with COVID and air exchange. But it's just, it's like, what are you trying to achieve and how can you achieve it? And just because building code's prescriptive, a building code might not be correct anymore. And there may be alternative ways of doing it, but sometimes those ways of proving it are too onerous for manufacturers or engineers or.
And it's a long process. And I was having this conversation with a journalist, John Bleasby out of Ontario recently as well. Is it kind of crazy or is it kind of sensible that it takes a decade plus to make even a minor change to the code? Right? Like, even this minor change to this one little bit of combustibility in the code took a decade and counting. And then it still doesn't even, accommodate for mass timber buildings. That's still going to be the next iteration of the building code, which is going to be another 5 years, which is going to be another couple of years to adopt. And yet we were building, mass timber buildings quite safely 100 some years ago, right? As there's a lot more of them in Ontario than here in Alberta. But which we should touch on Alberta too, because I know you guys did the very cool
Scott Subaru project halfway between where I'm located in Edmonton and where we do our fabrication actually in Calgary. But in mass timber has been around for a long time, and was considered to be quite safe for a long time. But do you have much influence on, or are you involved much in codes and code development? I know there's conversation as well, speaking about passive house. There was a discussion about making airtightness testing mandatory in Ontario. That's something obviously we'd love to see across the country. But are you involved in those conversations at all, Andrew?
In varying degrees, and I mean, as a business owner, I only have so much time to contribute to all, and there's so many different initiatives in different jurisdictions, right? And we work in a variety, across Canada, down in the States, even in Europe, Australia, right? But are predominantly working in Canada. And and we'd love to support all of these, especially myself with deeper technical knowledge. And yet, there's only so much. So you got to pick and choose. Okay, where is my time best used, and where can we leverage? That's why I'm glad. I was a founding director of Passive House Canada, because we saw like we need a national organization to really help drive these conversations and get like more politically savvy folks involved, because it's not just technical discussions. There's the political side. So that's not my strength or background or whatever. So that's where I think that organization is doing some great work, right? And where I can really lend best support, especially in a technical side, I'll step in. So one of the things we're actually currently looking at, CSA 439. Sorry, I'm kind of stuck with ventilation, even though it's
great.
curtain walls, but it's just an example. It's kind of very, very prescient for me right now because we're having challenges on that side. So this standard CSA 439 deals with package kind of residential size ventilation systems, and there's barriers there in terms of installation of because there's certain requirements, and say the Ontario Building Code points to that and has certain requirements, and we have trouble installing Passive House certified ventilation systems because of certain requirements that are laid down there. So we're going to be working to try and address those issues that are acting as obstacles, right?
Obviously passive house, and hopefully one day we'll be able to sort of spread the word that passive house isn't just for houses. Mm-hmm. There's definitely that sort of like conception, and of course the name can be potentially misleading, but we're definitely starting to see a lot more creative sort of non-residential applications, and maybe now's a good time to come back to the Scott Subaru example, and maybe you can help discuss, it's been a couple of years since that project was completed. As a percentage of the projects that you're consulting on, are you seeing the non-residential percentage grow, or is it kind of fixed? And of course, the whole pie is growing. You're working on more projects, I'm sure, than were working on 2 and 5 years ago. But as a percentage, is the non-residential growing, or is it relatively fixed? And about what is that percentage?
I don't know if I've looked at it from a residential versus non-residential perspective. Certainly the number of projects we're working on in the non-residential space has increased. It may have increased percentage-wise for the work we do. We've got a large 6-story office retrofit in Toronto with an organization. I'm not privy yet to talk openly about it, like details, but they're a provincial organization that is, financially savvy. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So if they're saying, "Hey, Enterfit makes sense financially," then that's to me a clear indicator. Okay, there's a good kind of commercial sense or commercial case for passive house on non-residential buildings, right? And this is a retrofit too, so talk with that those kind of challenges that come with a retrofit.
Right. And the Scott Subaru, for those who haven't heard about this wonderful project yet, it was at the time the first ever passive house certified car dealership in the world. And I think you'd mentioned on some other programs and interviews that it was the hardest project you'd ever worked on at the time. Is that still true?
Possibly. I mean, this office retrofit is a challenge because you open up, you start to demolish, you get all these sorts of interesting conditions. The HVAC requirements on the Subaru car dealership were challenging. These are just a different level of challenge. So this could possibly be our overtaking the Subaru dealership. The Subaru had a lot of novelty in terms of how can we source overhead doors. I mean, even at the time there wasn't really many like curtain wall. I think you guys had existed, but we weren't even aware of you, right?
No, and we didn't have, and we weren't certified yet at that time either.
Yeah.
When you guys were in design, because when did that building open? 2019.
I think it completed in open 2019, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. So you're designing in 2016, 17, kind of thing, 18 maybe at the latest. But it was actually, I think, an instrumental project in terms of us sort of developing a business case and a thesis for how there is going to be demand for a cold climate certified passive house curtain wall. And in addition to, of course, where we saw building codes going with BC Energy Step Code, but in general, we saw an opportunity because of I'm trying to remember actually which curtain wall was it. The Rainier system you guys had used on that one.
Racona, was it, I think?
Okay, sorry, Racona,
I think, yeah.
So of course, it had to be a European system of some description. That's kind of what there was at the time. Obviously, you guys work with a lot of imported products and systems. Have you found that over the course of COVID and with our current supply chain challenges? Not that even domestic manufacturers haven't been affected by supply chain challenges, to be sure, but have you seen much change in the last, 2 years in terms of importing products and lead times or prices? Because obviously the passive house system relies on a lot of imported products, right? At this time, in this early phase of adoption.
I mean, that's certainly gradually changing with more and more manufacturers, especially in the window and now curtain wall space, right? Designed and manufactured, right? I think that's key. Designed for Canadian situation, right? Because we even a few years ago talking to window manufacturers that were importing like profiles, could be PVC profiles they would form into windows. They were actually asking, eventually after enough experience, they were asking the profile manufacturer, hey, can you adjust this? We need this for our particular types of projects we're working on, right? So taking existing European system, but trying to modify it, right? So in terms of like lead times have definitely been affected. I don't know if, I mean, it varies product to product, right? Some products we've been relying on now, 20-week lead times, windows, you're like, okay, well, you got to really replan how you integrate the windows and like, do you make decisions on windows before taking rough opening measurements on things, and you got to build around the windows now, right? It's like switch how you do things. That's where I think prefab's an interesting, potential way of addressing these things, where it's like, well, if you got more precision with prefab, can you get the prefab manufacturer to build around, pre-order the windows, get them to build it around the exact dimensions you're going to have from the window supplier, get them shipped early. So there's challenges. I don't know if it's unique to products we're importing. Yeah, it's just and I'm trying to think if it's ultimately disrupted any of our projects, the kind of import side of things. I don't think our projects have been too badly affected.
That's great to hear, because of course that's one of the challenges I think inherent in trying to bring a building standard that was designed for a different continent into our continent. There's different boundary conditions that we calculate in North America. As I talked to, previously with Brandon Gem from RJC, the glass thicknesses, the overall thickness of glass units tends to be much larger in Europe. As an example of some of the challenges, because their boundary conditions are at 0 degrees Celsius, and our boundary conditions for calculations are usually at -18. It was great to see at the Passive House conference in Victoria this last spring, some conversations about saying, well, maybe we don't need, for North America, for Canadian, product or project, I should say, we don't need those, 56 millimeter thick, IGUs. We can just use our standard 44 millimeter thick triple glazed IGUs with 6 mil glass. And that was actually will be better suited. And then we can source the glass locally too, because, domestic IGU suppliers have that 1/2-inch 13 mil spacer, and they don't have to, have the glass made in Spain or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of sort of building out this network, building out this foundation that is the passive house world, obviously you guys are very involved in education as well. Why isn't it enough that we just certify projects? Why isn't that enough? Why can't we just certify projects? Why is it important to also certify people?
So I think that we all have basic fundamental knowledge. To me, it's creating a common language we can discuss and understand. And literally we've had, we do private group training for, our large architects, engineering firms, construction management firms. And it's interesting the impact we see, not just on the project we work at, because often it would be in a project context of a project, they'll train up a whole bunch of, 20 of their team members. But we hear anecdotes of people who've taken the training, they're working on other projects. They're seeing things differently. Like, oh, thermal bridging. Okay. Hey, we should adjust this on this other project that's not going for passive house. But now that's just going to lead to a better building over there. We're not going to call it, it's not going to meet passive house performance, but it's going to be better than it was. Right. So there's a lot of knock-on effects. I mean, even coming back, not education, but exposure. You saw the Red Deer Subaru as helping you build the business case. Oh, I can build a certified passive house curtain wall system for cold climates. Like, there's going to be a market for this. I'm going to go do it. Like, I didn't even think about that. I think of inspiring other car dealership owners to build but funny enough, we haven't had the next project yet. Surprisingly, I thought that would. But
has the Scott family not planned to do more?
But the one individual owner doesn't just build. They're not building one per year, right? So
every couple of years.
Yeah, there's planning there stuff, right? So. And we've had conversations with a couple folks, whether it's an architect firm that works on car dealerships or, another, family or whatever. But sometimes, these decisions aren't necessarily, business owners aren't making quick decisions necessarily on these kind of investments, right? So they're longer conversations. But that my kind of initial, my thinking is, this will inspire other buildings of this type, not inspire manufacturers like you to build a product that's kind of needed for this kind of building, or say, okay, yeah, right. So no, that's great feedback. Actually, widens my kind of perspective on things.
I think that's really speaks to the importance of, and like you said, beacon projects. These spotlight projects that they have ripples that we can't always even anticipate, and and that it was projects like Scott Subaru and that helped us. Yeah, we made a 5-year investment, and I won't untold dollars, but a 5-year time investment in sort of going back to basics, looking at our frame and saying, okay, how can we improve this? What is it that these freaking crazy Europeans are doing? What are they doing that we're not? What are they seeing that we're not seeing? What can we learn from them? And, really sort of deconstructing some of the European certified systems and figuring out, okay, we have this material advantage. You just take a raw fiberglass to raw aluminum. Raw fiberglass will conduct 200 times less. It's like, how are they able to meet these criteria? And yeah, that really helped to, sort of inspire and, send us down a rabbit hole that will be really sort of completed with this fire testing we're doing. But that's sort of the last piece of the puzzle. We've done all the condensation, air water testing, and sort of got this system into production. But yeah, it's a journey. And then now, it's into production, commercialized. Now we have to get it into projects, right? And that's the next step is finding the opportunities for cold climate projects. And we've started to, just this last 3-4 months started to bid some of those, and we'll see how those go, of course. But it's a journey, right? It's a journey, and but it starts with sometimes things you would never expect.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I mean, it's hard maybe for you from the manufacturing side to make this case, and that's where I think having a goal on a project of we're going to do certified passive house, because that unlocks opportunities. So yeah, you're going to pay more for your product versus a conventional double pane, non-thermally broken window, right? Like that's just a given, right? You got to spend some more money. But one of the things we struggled with on Subaru, like until you came around, there was no cold climate certified curtain wall. So we used good quality, like German, I think it was German product, but it wasn't rated for the climate. So guess what? We gotta wash the wall and heat to offset any comfort issues. Well, we're bringing our mechanical equipment, big distribution there, so we end up spending more on mechanicals than we need to. So. And we actually HVAC costs, especially now, have gone up quite a bit of late, right? So it's galvanizing us further to say, okay, how do we simplify the HVAC solutions that we're putting into these buildings? But if we don't have the envelope components to support that, well, it's a non-conversation, right?
And the investment in and that's totally right. And the investment in bigger mechanical systems, our investment in active systems, right? Which very much is sort of like counter to the whole passive principle. The whole passive principle is that, they're low maintenance, they're, they'll last for generations and generations, 50 and 100 years. But all these active components, introducing anything mechanical, is risk of something breaking down the road, is risk of having to find replacement parts for these things. And if you're, having to import, crazy, ventilation mechanical systems, having to find contractors who can service them, having to find the specialized trades. And trades are, as you probably have seen in your part of the world as well, not getting easier to find, right? Like good people who know, who have experience and who have, the right skill set. And so the more we're investing in the passive element, the more we're sort of future-proofing our buildings as well.
For sure, yeah. And I mean, there's a whole knock-on effects of the larger systems, as you said, with maintenance. I mean, and we're trying to decarbonize, right? And generally that means electrification, right? And obviously depends on your jurisdiction, how clean the electricity is, but the push towards heat pumps. And, it is a challenge in cold climates like Red Deer. Heat pump, it really taxes the functionality of heat pumps. So generally we need backup in these climates. And well, okay, if you have this big heat pump system now, well, you've got to have an equivalent size backup, right? Whereas if we're able to simplify, downsize, all that, well, okay, that we still need the backup until the technology continues to, improve and be able to work at the cold design temperatures. But yeah, now we can downsize the backup. That could impact transformer size on a if the building's big enough and needs a transformer, right? And those are material costs, right? So there's a whole, that's why just looking at the cost of one item, and it's so many cost consultants, developers, building owners look at this line by line, like, oh, that's an expensive item, let's get rid of it in value engineering, right? But they're not looking at the wider context and the knock-on impacts of making those changes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of these days I'll have to do a podcast or a blog post or something just on value engineering, because I think that's I think even just adding the label engineering makes it sound like it's so scientific and sophisticated, when really, like you said, it can be excessively reductive, and it can lose the forest for the trees. But yeah, so one of these days we'll have you back and we'll do a whole conversation. I'm sure you see that on a lot of projects. For sure.
Yeah. And then definitely this interplay of envelope versus mechanical. We got a condo project in Ontario where, the developer's pressed with costs. So it's like, okay, should I downgrade to double pane windows? We're like, well, the HVAC system was designed so we don't have to bring ductwork to the windows. If you swap, you might net cost you more to make the switch, right?
Right. Yeah, and that just shows how interconnected all of these systems are, because like you said, all that air washing over the windows, the size of the mechanical systems and ventilation, the interconnectedness of everything. We see the healthcare market as being like kind of primed to have those conversations, and they're keeping their buildings 50 and 100 years. They care very deeply about maintenance costs. They're not necessarily going for passive house, but they care about relative humidity. And if you can have 35% interior relative humidity at -30, without condensation. That's cool. If you can have 50% interior relative humidity at -18 with no condensation, that's pretty cool. We think there's a strong sort of like alignment. But of course, that market, moves very slowly, right? Like, to design and build a new healthcare facility, hospital, whatever it is like a 10 to 15 year process. So,
by the way, the first passive house hospital got certified in Germany recently. Yeah.
Where in Germany?
Is it Frankfurt? I could have that wrong. But yeah, you search Passive House Hospital, Germany, or go to the Passive House Institute's website. It'll be one of their kind of highlight news items. So, yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, well, I have to.
So you can drop that in the healthcare conference. Say, hey, look,
Passive
House, right? Get the plant, plant the seeds, right?
Totally. Like, and especially in a world where, and especially like, go figure that the Passive House sort of system is sort of took off in Germany, and now like look at the energy prices in Germany. I don't know if you've been following like the whole sort of knock-on effects of the Ukraine war, and the Russian invasion and shutting off of Nord Stream 2. They're insane. It's like 5 times what we're paying for energy.
Yeah,
or more. Like their gas, even if their gas for fuel is like $9 a gallon or something. It's like $3 a liter or something like that.
Yeah. Interesting tidbit. Heard from colleague in Germany about, Passive House was developing, but as soon as it came out of its niche and started to have some influence, I understand the energy companies. Well, the energy companies started to pay attention, like, this is against our interests. So the political winds changed a bit, so they kind of dampened their energy efficiency progression in Germany, which they're only going to be paying for, right? So and that happened in the UK as well. Although that was house builders that protested, not the energy companies. But there's a whole thing in the UK about that big kind of somewhat scandal really around that. And the UK, they had now a few, over a decade, well, I don't know how many years it would have been now, of homes that could have been zero carbon, and they aren't. They're a bit better than they would have been 15 years ago. And people with higher energy bills now, literally like they doubled, I think, not overnight, but like in a short period, the energy. Yeah, it's crazy. So talk about non-resiliency, right?
And I think that increasingly it will not just be this sort of like center left sustainability kind of mindset, but it'll be a center right geopolitical independence, right? I think that there's alignment there, and I think that's going to be a great place for the future for what we're doing, collectively, you and I, is that it's not going to be as one-sided. Like there will be alignment between sort of like business interests and sustainability interests and political interests. I think that this Passive House movement is going to increasingly show its breadth of ability, that its resilience.
Yeah, because with this office retrofit, it was a surprise to us, but it was the first time it came out where I think any costing, but this was a retrofit where it was like, oh, Passive House isn't going to cost you more, right? Basically, they had two a cost estimator who said it was going to cost less, and then their construction manager who said it was going to cost more. You net it, and it was like, the difference was zero. We don't necessarily expect maybe there will be some cost increase or whatever, but that was sufficient to say for the owner to say, okay, let's move ahead, right? So we're really trying to drive. That's why I would drive simplicity of HVAC, and like, look, I think we can get to cost parity with Passive House if we design it right and choose the right components. And actually, I got my own little there's 2 potential projects. The smallest is a 6-plex personal project I'm going to test out, and actually trying to get some federal grant money to test out this innovative HVAC solution that will drive costs down. And so we'll check in with me in a while, year or two, and we'll see if I get the grant by next year, and then see how it goes in a couple of years.
We've run through a lot of material here today. We've covered quite a bit of ground. Where can people find you online going forward, Andrew?
Sure, at our website, peelpassivhouse.ca, so Peel, Peel, and then Passivos. My email is andrew@peoplepassos.ca, so you can drop me a line.
Wonderful. Well, thanks very much for joining us on Curtain Wall Conversations, and appreciate your time.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Peter, for having me.
We hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook to stay up to date on new episodes of this series. Also be sure to check out our Spotify and Apple Podcast accounts, where this episode and others are now available. If you have any questions about our conversation today or fiberglass framed curtain walls in general, feel free to reach out to us via email at info@glasscurtain.ca. You can also subscribe to our blog for all the latest updates, which we'll link to in the description below. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time.